So my name is Vijay Ramachandran, and I'm an assistant professor in the computer science department. It's my honor to introduce our colloquium speaker for today. As hopefully many of you know, there's a series of these talks that happen on almost every other Friday afternoon throughout the semester, so you can keep an eye out for posters with schedules of these talks. There's lots of interesting topics from across the sciences featured, and this is happily one of them. So our speaker today is Josh Benaloh, who's a cryptographer at Microsoft Research, and his work straddles both the practical and the interesting, and sometimes they even cross in both practical and interesting at the same time. He's been with Microsoft since 1994. This is
yes.
attempted bio.
Oh, that's correct.
He has a bachelor's in mathematics from MIT and a PhD in computer science from Yale.
Mm-hmm.
That's familiar? Okay. Was a postdoc at the University of Toronto, served as an assistant professor for a short while before going to Microsoft at Clarkson University, which is even farther north in New York than where we are.
Much further, yeah.
And of course, in his various professional capacities, has worked with lots of professional organizations and with federal and state agencies to talk about security in various forms. And this is a major interest area of his where he's had a lot of interactions with groups recently and is happy to tell us about advances in election technology. So Josh will be speaking to us today about verifiable election technologies. And I think I should probably stop here and let you take over. Thanks very much for coming today.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you very much, Vijay. I've enjoyed my trip so far. I just want to make sure I understand properly. Did you say I work both in practical and interesting things?
Sometimes both at the same time.
Okay, good. I guess I missed that little detail, which is, yes. Yeah, I think that's about right. Anyway, I've in putting together this talk, I have this little picture that is around that seems to be on some signs around campus. So I want to sort of start off by focusing in on this and see if anybody might be able to guess where this picture is from. Anybody want to venture a possibility? Yep.
It's probably from some protest over voter ID laws. Pennsylvania, maybe?
No, it's actually a little bit older than that. It's a good thought. This is the first time I've heard that. Just in case people are feeling badly, I showed this photo to about 18 months ago, so that gives you a lower bound on the date, to a group of state secretaries of state and election directors at a talk I gave in DC. And none of them knew where this was from. So don't feel badly if you do. But I saw.
It's not in D.C. Is it like taxation without representation and senators?
Nope. This is about voting for people, not for an issue. Is there another? Yeah.
Is it Iran?
Ah, wonderful. Very good. Wow, I had a whole set of hints prepared, more knowledgeable than state election directors. Yes, this is from a little over 3 years ago. These are the protests after the Iranian election, where Ahmadinejad was reelected in an election that the foreign observers basically said was entirely fraudulent. That it seemed that what the Iranian government had done in this election was just take everybody's vote, throw them away, and announce whatever tally they felt like announcing. And that was pretty much it. And this "where is my vote" cry became the mantra of the protest. This was not just on signs. This was in lots of places, on banners, on placards, T-shirts, buttons, posters, everywhere. This became the rallying cry of the election, of the protests. And it was a pretty powerful cry, maybe not very effective in the end, but it was powerful in the sense that it's a legitimate question. It's a reasonable question to ask and to expect to have answered. And it's a question that the Iranian government really couldn't answer in any substantive way. They had no way of showing people this. But the sad truth is, if this question were asked in the US, in Europe, pretty much anywhere in the world, any government running an election, with very few exceptions, wouldn't be able to answer this question either, even though it's a perfectly legitimate question. It's a reasonable thing to want to be able to do. And this is true for a variety of methods. This is true pretty much any way that people vote. Whether it be sort of hand-marked paper ballots, punch cards, this a system that isn't as bad as it may have been made to seem when it was the central focus of the 2000 presidential election and the controversy in Florida. There are things a lot worse than punch cards. It's true of lever machines. We were talking about this a little bit at lunch, but these mechanical marvels that were just phased out of New York State, the last bastion for these wonderful things that had all sorts of great properties, including the ability to change the voting wheels, the counts, with a paperclip if you know how to do it in the right place. So they have some issues, but they're really nice, really nice. It's true for optical scan ballots, which has become to a large extent the method of choice in the US. I think it's over 50% now of people are voting on optical scan ballots. True for electronic voting machines, this form. Some people, probably few people, well, I don't know if there's anybody in this room who might recognize this, but these are what more people in the world use to vote than any other device. These are the electronic voting machines used in India, a democracy of more than 1 billion people. Pretty simple device. Essentially, one end of this is a voting administrator, pushes a button, says, okay, this is open to vote, and then the voter chooses one of the party buttons, pushes the button, and it's done, until the next time the administrator says, okay, somebody else can vote. And it's very simple to use, got some nice properties, fits the situation well, and has been demonstrated to be easily hackable and breakable in many ways. And I can, if people are interested, point people to some of the issues there. It's certainly true of what is sometimes called DREs, direct recording electric, or what better known as just touchscreen electronic voting devices that were very popular in the US a few years ago and have now been being pushed aside because of security concerns largely. The same thing is true of all sorts of hybrids, like taking an electronic voting terminal but adding a paper trail. No matter what of these devices, what of these systems, what of these voting technologies are being used, you still have the same issues of vulnerabilities and the same trust issues. There's the where is my vote question. All of these systems have very deep and substantial vulnerabilities, and all of them require voters to trust the honesty, the expertise of voting officials, and usually the equipment and the equipment vendors, and maybe even a host of other people that they don't even know about, to ensure that the election outcome really is legitimate and really represents the will of the people in some sense. Okay? Voting from a voter's perspective, what this typically looks like today for most people is you start out today and you go down to the poll. Well, okay, in the Northwest where I'm from, it always rains in November, so it's this is what going to the poll would look like. And I'm lying a little bit because we vote by mail in the state of Washington, so you don't get this. But imagine that. You go down, you sign in some way to say, yes, I'm here, yes, I'm legitimate, yes, I'm a good voter. You get a ballot in some way, whether it's paper or you get the right to use a machine or something. You mark it, you express your intentions, you cast your ballot in some way, and then you go home. And you wait. And you wait, and you wait, and then eventually something happens out from behind some magical curtain somewhere. An announcement is made, and here's the result. Here are the winners of the election. Yay, we're done. See you again in 4 years or whatever. Okay? That's all great if you think the people behind the curtain are doing the right thing, but do you really know? You don't really see, as an individual voter, what happens behind the curtain. You really have no choice but to just trust the people behind the curtain that they're doing the right thing. And kind of the worst part of it is you don't even get to choose who you have to trust. There are some people who have been appointed or maybe elected by other people, or maybe elected with a similar system that you might not trust to begin with, and these are the people who are administering the election. You don't know. We can do better than this. We really can. It's possible to run elections such that every single voter can individually verify the correctness of the tally, and do this without having to trust anyone or anything at all. Okay? This is a powerful thing to be able to do. Some describe it as sort of a democratization of the electoral process. It's putting control of the election in the hands of voters and allowing them to check that the election is being run properly. And the process is sometimes called fully verifiable election technologies, verifiable, end-to-end verifiable. It used to be just verifiable, but people, that got a good name, so people started usurping the term for things that really aren't verifiable. And now if we want to say, no, it really is verifiable, you have to add something to it to say it's really verifiable, not just verifiable. So in one of these systems, we have the ability for voters to track their individual votes through the system and ensure that they're properly counted. Now, they're sealed in a way so that they can't be seen by others, but you can track your own vote. And this is true even if there's malicious personnel, faulty equipment, whatever. And if the people involved are utterly dishonest even, you can still track it and make sure that things are done correctly, or know that it hasn't been done correctly. Okay? Voters can particularly check that their sealed votes have been properly recorded, that all of the recorded votes have been properly counted, and it's not just checking some sort of a claim that the right things have been done. You're actually checking that the counting is correct. Now, I want to distinguish between these 2 points a little bit, because you can check that your vote is properly recorded. You can check that all recorded votes are properly counted. You can't check that other people's votes are properly recorded, because that requires kind of reading their minds. I have the ability to check that my vote is properly captured, but I don't know what you really intended to vote. It's kind of up to you to make sure that your intentions are properly captured in some way. But once they are, then I can check that whatever has been recorded as your intentions, and know that you could check and make sure of that, whatever has been recorded, that is what is counted, and that's been properly counted. It's kind of the most that I could imagine doing here. Okay, so let's get back to this where is my vote question. And let's look. And I'm going to show you how to do something that seemed maybe like it was very difficult, absolutely trivially. Here it is. Everybody casts a vote. And some sort of a website, a public place, maybe even the newspapers, all the votes together with the voters are listed. There it is. Everybody can look. Everybody can see. Here I am. Here's my vote. Here are the other people. Yeah, I know there are no votes from people who I know moved away last year, or for whatever reason aren't eligible. I might not be able to check everybody, but I could check all the people in my neighborhood, and maybe there are others who are looking. The voter rolls are sort of another matter to look at, but they're all open and public. You can see all of the names. You can see all the votes, including your own. Make sure that your vote is correct, and make sure that the count matches all the votes there. Okay, that's it. Yeah, it seemed like it was sort of an awful lot to ask, but there it is, completely public process. This thing that seemed like it was very hard to achieve is achievable. Okay? Now, as a voter with that system, I can check that my vote is cast the way I intended, counted the way that I cast it, and that all votes are counted the way that they're cast. And I really, literally, if you think about this, don't have to trust anyone or anything with that system. I can just look and see, here it is, here's the list. The list is correct from my point of view. Everything looks good. Okay? There is one little thing the more perceptive of you might have noticed here. One little thing is missing. This kind of annoying little requirement of secret ballots. Okay, that makes things a little bit harder. Elections would be a lot easier to do if we didn't have to worry about it. But here's where the cryptography comes in, because that's exactly what cryptography is good at. Cryptography is good at protecting secrets, but still allowing people to work with the secret information in ways to do useful things. Okay, so what are we going to do here? We're going to start with this just web page, this big public posting of everything, all the votes, and we're going to take them, you like my animation here, and seal them up. Okay? That's the encryption. So everything is still posted, but what's posted now is encrypted votes rather than open votes. And then, once we have the encrypted votes posted, we do this in a way that you can check that your encrypted vote matches your intentions. And I'll get into how to do that in a little bit. And then you check that the other voters seem to be legitimate voters. And then you take this set of encrypted votes that have been posted and seem to be okay, and go through a process where that set is associated with a tally and some sort of a proof that this tally really does correspond to this set of votes. This set of encrypted votes, if they were individually decrypted, would produce that tally. There's a proof of doing that without having to individually decrypt these. Okay? That's the process that we're going for. And that's kind of the higher level. That's pretty much, if you want to leave now and walk away with that's sort of the basic idea here. And I'll say it again, you still achieve all of these same properties. Anyone can check everything through this whole process. Okay. I guess I'm being a little redundant because the properties are really important here. You check that your own votes are encrypted, are properly listed. Other voters are legitimate, and you can check the proof. Anyone can, even non-voters, even just raw observers of the system can check this. So, is that all it is? Time to go home? Weekend starting now? Good? Well, in some sense, yeah, it really is pretty much this easy, but there's an hour to fill, and there are lots of details to get right here. So I'm not going to talk about all the details, but I'll give you a little bit of a sense of what's going on and how to make some of these things work. But you already see, I hope, how this could be done. You could start to think, okay, maybe I could start to build a way to do this. Okay, so there are two big questions that I've left unanswered. These are sort of the big details. The first is, okay, I'm a voter. This is how I want to vote. How does my choice for candidate A and candidate B turn into some encrypted value, which is just a bunch of numbers that doesn't mean anything to me, in a way that I can have some confidence that really this does represent my intentions, my vote? The second question is that mathematical proof part at the end. How are voters convinced that the encrypted votes that are published correspond to the tally that comes out? Okay? So I'm going to address both of these questions, but for a variety of reasons, for both historical reasons and because of sort of pedagogical reasons to make it easier, I'm going to start with two. I'm going to start with the proof, but don't forget about this. We'll go back to this, because this is kind of the interesting recent question that's gotten a lot of attention. But we'll start here. How do you do the proof? Yeah, please.
Just a clarification question. So how do you have to trust the vote publisher that they've published all of the votes, so that there isn't some district that they said, well, they know they're going to vote one way, so let's just throw out all their votes?
Well,
the people in that district.
the people can see, you can see, wait a minute, there are no votes from this district, because you've got all the names and this district is empty. And the people from that district, I would hope, would be complaining loudly, but you can see, it's as open as it can be. I can see every single voter. I can see whether or not they've cast a vote, which is a matter of public record in almost every place in the U.S. already. So I'm not introducing any new thing by suggesting that. And then I'm doing more than allowing you to just say, oh yes, there's some box that says this voter voted in this election and it may have been counted in some way. I'm allowing you to check. You can look at the actual encrypted vote and see that it went through the process properly and see that part of the proof. Okay? So let's look at that second question first. How can you show that a set of encrypted votes corresponds to a particular tally without decrypting the individual votes? Okay? There are two basic ways of doing this. There are a couple of possibilities, but this has become a pretty mature field, and it's not resting on just here's one method that works, and if there's some hole found, the whole thing will fall apart. There are different choices for how to do a lot of these things. And this proof part, there are two basic ways of doing this. One is sort of a ballot anonymization process, sometimes known as mixed networks. Another is doing it without tallying, without individual ballots, ballotless tallying, you might call it, which is also known as homomorphic encryption in the trade. So just to give a sense of what these things are, these have good physical analogies. The ballot anonymization process is very much like what you have with a ballot box. When you drop your ballot in a ballot box, you're not making your ballot disappear. You're just dissociating the ballot from the voter. So all the ballots are still there. They're all going to be open and they're all going to be seen. But you just don't know any longer. You know who dropped the ballots in, but you don't know which ballot goes with which person. You've done that dissociation by giving the ballot box a vigorous shake. And that's really what we're doing here. We're going to do the digital analog of physically shaking a ballot box to get the ballots open and dropped out. The ballotless tallying is more like the old lever machines. The lever machines, there aren't any ballots that come out of the process at the end. The only thing that comes out of the process at the end are the tallies. Whatever the wheels say at the end is how many people voted for each choice, how many people pulled this lever through the course of the day. That's what you see in the end. You don't see individual ballots anymore. And there are trade-offs between the two, but for the high level, this is good. Mm-hmm.
But isn't the good thing about those old lever machines, which unfortunately they don't use, isn't the good thing that the system prevents you from voting for too many candidates? Because like on the optical scan ones, you can bubble in the wrong number if it says like pick 3 of these 5 judges to elect, and some you might, the type is small, you might choose the wrong number, but on the machines they won't let you vote for too
So you've brought up a bunch of interesting issues here. And first, for people who don't know, one of the reasons I call these mechanical machines a marvel is they're purely mechanical processes. The only power that goes into this is used to light the bulb at the top, to produce light. But mechanically, things are linked so that normally you can throw only one lever in each column, and also there's a write-in place at the beginning, at the top of each column, and if you open the write-in place, you can write something in, but once you've opened that, then you can no longer throw a lever. But you can set it up so that up to 3 out of these levers in this column can be thrown, because it might be choose 3 out of the candidate's kind of race, and you can do that kind of mechanical linking. You can do all these mechanical tricks to force you to not be able to cast an illegitimate vote. With fill out a bubble sheet, you could potentially vote twice for president and have your ballot be voided. Now, when bubble sheets are done well, they're done usually with precinct-based optical scan, which means there's a scanner in the precinct, and you take your optical scan ballot, and you as a voter physically drop it in the scanner. And the scanner will read the ballot, and if there's an overvote, if there's something illegitimate, it'll spit it back out and say, oh, something's wrong here, go check and get it right. And that will give you some margin, but it's imperfect. In the digital ways that we'll do this, and I'll talk about voter interfaces much later in the talk when we get to that, but we can certainly have digital ways of saying, wait a minute, you've overvoted, that's not allowed, and limit you to doing only legitimate votes. Okay, so I'm going to talk about how we do this ballotless tallying here, and I'll talk about it in terms of this fancy thing called homomorphic encryption. And this is, when I talked about this before election directors in DC, I wouldn't do this, right? This is math. So anybody who's scared of math, you just sort of let your mind wander for about 3 slides, and I promise we'll get back to other easier things soon. But we'll do a little bit of math. This is a sophisticated audience you can have.